in order to sort out the different sorts of problems. For example, problems of desire, problems of attachment, problems of anger, problems of jealousy, and problems of prides, and all these things. Each of these problems has a different individual antidotes that Buddha has very kindly given to us. But overall, most important, the principal important thing, the priority thing that we have to practice is, we have to, we have to do, or we have to contemplate, is that the ignorant, we have to really sort out the ignorant. If you are able to sort out the ignorant, then everything, all the rest of the problems will be sorted out, either gradually or in one go. That depends, very depends. For some people, for some practitioners, they can go almost in one sort of simultaneously, like in one go. And so for some practitioners, for other types of practitioners, they take quite a long time. Gradually, they will be able to sort out this problem. However, ignorant is the one thing that we have to sort out. Misunderstanding, ignorant. Please do understand, when I say ignorant, it is misunderstanding. And when I say misunderstanding, means our way of understanding. That's the thing. Our way of, lay way of understanding is misunderstanding. I think 98% or 99% is sure that, how do you say, that it is misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. That's for sure. For example, when we go through the relationship, where we believe and we think and we sometimes confirm ourselves that the opposite person that you are relating to is fantastic, is a great man, is a great woman, You confirm yourself. That is a cause of catastrophe. That is misunderstanding, most of the cases. But you confirm. You confirm very easily. He or she is a wonderful person. And he or she is right person to be my partner, So wonderful and confirmed. So that's the moment that you have to be very careful, because you may be stepping into a hole of a fire, dam of a fire, something like that, because it's a misunderstanding. Actually, and not only that, this is just it's an example I gave, but actually whatever you say, this, for example, from Mahamudra point of view, if you look at this flower and say, this is a pink, the color, the pink flower, that itself is a big misunderstanding. You think, we have maybe 2,000 people over here in this hall, and the 2,000 people comes together and decide that this flower being a pink flower. So what? We all have a how do you say, same type of misunderstanding. But that doesn't confirm anything. But we think, wow, 2,000 people confirmed this flower being a pink flower. So what more we need confirmation? No, we don't need any more confirmation, because 2,000 people confirmed this. So there's no need anything anymore. No. Even if there is 1 million people confirmed this flower being a pink flower, doesn't mean that this is a pink flower. Doesn't mean that. Because there will be definitely a person saying that this is a red flower, this is not a pink flower. I'm sorry, definitely. So at that moment, what happens with this pink flower? Confirmed by 2,000 people, but one guy came, said, for sure that this is not a pink flower, this is a red flower. Then up until now, we have been confirming this flower. What happens with that? There's no sort of strong, relevant, what you call that, background. There's nothing. Just we are believing in our eyes, the concept, and then the eyes. And the eye sees this way, the eye sees that way. So then you believe it. It's a very primitive way of living. But that doesn't mean that, this is something wrong. It's just information, it is just an information that Buddha has given to us. So we have to understand all these things. That the fact that our life is very much being primitive. The fact that our life is being very deceiving. So this is something we should understand, and that understanding is very much the base of improving your lifestyle. So however, I don't think we have that much of time, and I don't want to take much of your time. Anyway, this is this is derived from the suffering. Four Noble Truths the Buddha has been talking, and Buddha was sort of like emphasized very strongly, Four Noble Truths. And then the first one is suffering, and the second one is the cause of suffering. So that is the thing. We don't want to know what is the cause of suffering and what is the suffering. We don't know. We don't want to know that also. And some of the newcomers, they even said that very clearly to me also, that I am not joining in Buddhist group to know the suffering. I don't want to know that. I want to have the happiness. I'm searching for happiness. I don't want to know the sufferings. I know I have a lot of sufferings. I have been together with the sufferings for ages. So I don't want to know any more about it. So what can I say? Actually, this is a very sort of ignorantal way of approaching the Buddhist teaching. Because the Buddhist teaching itself is a method to, to demolish the suffering and have a permanent happiness. So in order to demolish the suffering, you have to know what is the suffering actually. That's the thing. For example, if there is, in this hall, if there is a thief, and he has been stealing many things for years, and we have been losing a lot of things, money and properties and jewelries and all these things for many years, but we don't know who is the thief. We are suffering from this kind of thing, being stolen, but we don't know who is the thief. So one day you have to know and look for. We have to search who is the thief. So once you realize who is the thief, then this is the moment that you really found the solution, how to get rid of the problems, of yourself being theft. It's very easy, because then you can you can ask this person to leave, because this person has been stealing. So that's the thing. So how can you say, I don't want to know the thief, but I don't want to be theft also? You cannot say that. If you don't want to be theft, you have to know who is the thief first. It's natural, very naturally understandable. So similarly, that if you don't want to be suffering, then before searching for happiness, you have to search the truth of suffering. What is really real the suffering? Really the real face of suffering. What is really happening? What's happening there? So if you know the suffering, then you know how to sort out the suffering, that's for sure. Because you know the suffering now. So if you know means, when you know the suffering, then you know the cause of suffering, and then the condition of suffering. All the causations and all these things will be sort of realized. And then after this certain realization, then you will be almost automatically sorting out the rest of the problems, because you know how to sort out. Whereas right now, we don't know how to sort out, because suffering is not known to us. Yes, headache is suffering. The toothache is suffering. Losing some members of your family is suffering. And losing, that sort of things. There are lots of sufferings. Yes, these are sufferings. But this is very gross sufferings, it's very sort of like visible and obvious suffering. But these sufferings are not that important to be mentioned and to be sort of very much focused. You have to, a very important thing is you have to be focusing on the subtle suffering, very much the subtle suffering that causes the big suffering. If there is no subtle suffering, there will be no big suffering, no gross suffering. Definitely not. So the gross suffering comes from the subtle suffering. For example, this big building comes from the subtle, very minor cement, and then the metals, small things, bricks, all these small things become such a big whole. So that's the thing. The suffering has to be started from a very minor thing, very minor. So then started and built up big suffering, great suffering. So therefore, we as a Buddhist, we have to search for the subtle suffering, the smallest suffering that causes the big suffering. That is the important thing. We resume the teaching based on this thing. We resume the teaching based on the Four Noble Truth, and so now we were saying that the suffering is the one thing that we have to understand, and then based on suffering, then we know everything. Like the suffering needs to be sort of how do you say, demolished, or the purified, and then. But in order to do that, one has to understand, as I said, one has to understand the cause of suffering, which is these three poisons. Three poisons causes a lot of sufferings, unnecessary sufferings. And the three poisons itself is based on nothing, That's the good part. When we talk about the negative part, the poisons is poisoned, it causes a lot of problems, etc., etc. But when we talk about a little, like if we want to be a little bit of optimistic about it, then we can say that the sufferings, and the cause of sufferings, all of them are based on nothingness, because based on ignorant itself is very much ignorant. Anyway, the ignorant itself has not really like a relevant kind of base, because ignorant itself has a very strong kind of a misunderstanding or a view of I, me, I, my, all these things, and the me or the I, when you have a concept of I. The concept of I definitely is a concept that has no base, because I has never been exist. I has never been exist. It's not like even a flower or something like that. Flower is relatively exist, and also the building is relatively exist. Man and woman, all these things are relatively exist. I is not even relatively exist. So therefore it is completely completely deceiving kind of thing, completely baseless concept. So that's the small kind of minor part of good news, if you like. It's a good news. I always say that. It's a good news. Even though it causes the desire, and it causes the anger, and it causes a lot of different sort of afflictive emotions, yet when you go back, which is really the main causes, and then you will understand that this is definitely basically causes by the ignorant. And ignorant itself, if you ask question to yourself, what is ignorant? What really is the ignorant? And then the answer definitely will be, if you search for it, you will never find something solid, because the ignorance is just a misconcept based on I, and the I is very strongly exist. To us, the I is very strongly exist. You think that way, but it is not even relatively true that it is exist. Not even relatively true. So of course there are in this universe, there are things that it's relatively true, but not ultimately. And there are things that ultimately true, but relatively may not be that much of relevant. But I, in fact, the concept of I, or the I that that we perceive as a very strong phenomena or entity, is totally deceiving, which is very much deceiving. It is not even relatively true. So this part, I always say that part is a good news, because it's that's the base, that's the kind of a foundation that we can think of purifying ourselves. There is a hope. When you think of that, there is a hope for enlightenment. Even though we are middle of we are like a swimming in the ocean of afflictive emotions and the samsara, yet there is a hope deep in the mind. There is a hope that we can swim and cross the ocean and get into the enlightenment. There is a hope. Why? Because we are swimming just because there is a strong concept of I, which is ignorant, but that doesn't have any base. That itself is very much the baseless, because I has no existence of anything. I is nothing, completely nothing. It has not even a relatively true. So therefore we have to think that now when we think about the suffering, we can understand all the way through to the cessation. That is the cessation of the cessation where you get fully enlightened, the full enlightenment. Because when we talk about cessation, or when we talk of enlightenment, that actually means you finishes, or you end up, you end the concept of ignorant, or concept of I. Concept of I dissolves into its own nature. So the concept of I will no longer be active. Right now, the concept of I is very active, so it creates a lot of developments, a lot of the process of development, which is the development of desire and the development of anger and the jealousy and the pride, etc., etc. There are lots of different things are happening next, one after the other. So when you have realized the fact that I being never exists and the baseless, then everything goes everything dissolves on its own nature. For example, if there is no fire, then even if there is a smoke in the air, will definitely gradually it'll be dissolved, because the fire is no longer active. If not, then sometime the smoke sometime goes temporarily, momentarily a smoke goes off, but then the smoke will come back as long as the fire exists. So similarly, that as long as you have you have, existence of the misunderstanding, as long as you have a concept of I being very solidly created, then even if you feel that temporarily or momentarily that you do not feel that much of disturbance from the afflictive emotions for the time being, you definitely sooner or later you'll be involving yourself deeply into the samsara, and again you'll be returning yourself back into the samsara. So therefore the key point is that the main cessation, that really we have to the action of I, or the misconcept of I being very strongly exist, has to be seized. And that will be seized, because if you through the development of understanding, some sense of understanding, then that will be seized. And then after seizing that, then of course that development anyway. That development is the path to the cessation, or a path to the enlightenment. Development, the process of development. Of course, when we talk about that process of development, that's the point where we have a lot of yanas. For example, Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, and etc., etc. And within Vajrayana, there are lots of yoga, lots of developments, lots of layers of practices. So all the layers of practices are very much the practices of different different levels of practices, and different levels of practices that is the path. Associates with the path of the enlightenment. That is the thing. So, but then, as I usually say, compassion and love. Compassion, to me, I understand compassion. Again, maybe it's a totally misunderstanding, but I understand compassion as devotion. Compassion and devotion hardly has any differences. This is what I understand, but maybe it's totally wrong. And then when it comes to love, then love is a sense of renunciation. This is what I understand. So the renunciation, and then the devotion, the sense of renunciation and sense of the devotion is very much needed. That's the essence of the path, the third noble truth that Buddha has given for us to understand. These two categories of understanding includes or concludes the teachings of path, the renunciation and the devotion. So renunciation is very much mostly emphasized in the Hinayana and partially in Mahayana. But the devotion is emphasized more in Vajrayana, and especially in Anuyoga, and then these kind of higher tantric yogas. But anyway, these two are the main path of the practice of the Buddhism: renunciation and the devotion. And when you say compassion and love, I can categorize these two are very much similar to the practice of renunciation and the devotion, because the compassion, compassion. When you think about compassion and read many books about the compassion concludes. You can conclude compassion in a kind of an understanding. That's the kind of thing. If you do not have a understanding, you will never have a great compassion, the real true compassion. Of course, you kind of, let's say, emotional compassion or ignorantal compassion is always there. All the mother has ignorantal compassion towards their own sons and daughters. For example, even the tigers and lions and all these nasty very scary kind of fierce animals also has a very strong compassion towards their own puppies. But this is very much ignorantal compassion. The compassion that we are talking about right now over here is understanding form of compassion, the compassion that leads you to the next development, which is the great love. So without leading yourself to great love, the compassion doesn't really help that much. Of course, momentarily, it helps, of course. Mother helps son, son helps parents, husband helps wife, wife helps husband. So these sort of things, of course it's a beautiful thing, but it doesn't really help you to get enlightenment. Doesn't help you to get through the process of Four Noble Truth, practice of Four Noble Truth. So therefore, compassion needs to be understood as a understanding, as a wisdom. So therefore, I would say that compassion is categorized in a devotion, and then the love is then the renunciation, because if you do not have a renunciation, created or developed, then the real love does not come. Again, same thing, same thing. People can say, I love this, I love that. You can even love fish. That means you want to eat, So that you just imagine, simply imagine that kind of love. Do you want it or not? You don't want that love. You don't want anybody to love you in that case, Because, I love fish means you're going to eat, So I love chicken. I love pork. So this actually means you are going to kill them and eat it. What kind of love that is? Very scary. This sounds to me like a Dracula. You would think that this kind of things only can be said by Dracula. I love him. That means I love blood. I love meat, I love your meat, I love your blood. So that sort of thing. So that kind of love is not a renunciation. I mean, what do you call that? It's not a renounced form of love. It's a deeply involved in a samsara. It's a form of a deeply involved in a samsara. So that is not a genuine love. So of course, love and the compassion is the one thing that we always talk about. So this is the love and compassion is the bodhicitta. If you like, to sort of pronounce in a kind of a fancy way, then you can call it bodhicitta. Bodhi enlightenment, which is of course love. No, a bodhi is the enlightenment, which is wisdom, and citta is the love, the heart is love. So wisdom and love goes together. So that's the same thing. In a lay language, compassion and love. And in a kind of a fancy language, you can say bodhicitta. That is the bodhi, enlightenment, and the citta, mind or heart. So heart of bodhi, or heart of enlightenment, or mind of enlightenment. Mind of altruistic mind of enlightenment. So whatever you may call it, it's just a different way of calling it, but actually you need understanding, that means wisdom, and you have to have some sort of a means to cut through the barrier and to get out there in the crowd and interact with the people and with the beings without any problem. Right now we have plenty of problem to interact with the people and with the beings, because you go there, as soon as you get into the crowd, you caught up with the desire, you caught up with the anger, you caught up with the jealousy, you caught up with the prides, and there are lots of things that you get caught up with. So this is why is it so that it's happening very commonly to us, is because we are common being. So we are full of misunderstanding, full of ignorance, full of desire, full of this afflictive emotions. Therefore we have this problem all the time. We face this kind of problem all the time. Even though we try our best to interact with the people, doesn't go. You get angry very easily. You get fed up with them very easily. You get caught up with them very easily. So there's many heaps of problems are waiting out there for you. And this is mainly because you are not trained, you are not prepared. And this is also one of the reasons the Hinayana teaching is very much very much designed for those people. For example, those people who are not prepared to practice bodhicitta, the wisdom and love together. They're not prepared. So therefore, the Hinayana is very much, Hinayana means the Theravadan practice is very much recommended, because it's not much of mentioning, not much of emphasis on the love, love, but just compassion. That's all. Not much of emphasis on the love, not much of emphasis on the action of love, but no, action of compassion, act of compassion, but just compassion itself. You just develop compassion itself, means you just have to go through the renunciation and contemplate within yourself. Go in the mountain and contemplate yourself, lock yourself up. And that's the kind of a way that you have to do. And that's the only solution left for you to develop any further path. This is an unfortunate, but of course we have to do that. There's no way to do other than that. So therefore Theravadan practice is very, very needed. It is very much needed. And the renunciation. But if you are prepared, you are much recommended, you're recommended to practice both at the same time, devotion and the renunciation together. That actually means bodhi, citta. The combine between these two, combination between the body and citta it really is the, what do you call that, very nice combination, if you like. It's a very complete kind of combination of the mind of the Buddha, the Buddha's mind, or Buddha himself, Buddha itself. So let's put it like that. Complete form of Buddha is wisdom and love. So when you combine, when you're able to combine these two in your practice, then you are practicing the Buddha, the true Buddha. Whereas if you are very much able to practice love but no wisdom, it doesn't help that much. And sometimes you are very good at developing wisdoms and all these things, but you are a failure to practice and to put it into practice. Again, that helps a certain way. It helps, but it's not fully helps. So therefore, it is just like a partial. But if you could manage to put these two together very nicely, then this is the point where you can call or claim yourself as a Mahayana practitioner and the practice of path of enlightenment. That is bodhicitta. So that is the path, the third noble truth. So that's the thing. So after that, then of course the time is very much depends on how dedicated and how diligent you are. But sometimes it may take ages and eons to sort of finish the path. And sometimes it may take few lives, and sometimes it may take few days or few hours to finish your path and get the total cessation, which is the enlightenment, the fourth noble truth. That is fully depends on your own diligent, the diligent and also the dedication. You have to dedicate yourself as much as you can, as deep as you can. However, this is again something that you have to understand. The cessation comes, when you talk about cessation, you must check, you must ask yourself that what is the real thing that we are talking about? To be ceased. What is the one? What is that? What is that? The thing that we are really thinking about ceasing is the continuation of ignorance. That's all. Continuation of ignorance. The continuation of ignorance is the continuation of samsara. So if you finish the end or cease the continuation of ignorance, that's the thing that you end the samsara. Your samsara, your individual samsara. I'm not talking about a collective samsara, but your individual samsara will end at that moment. So it's ceased. So that is the great cessation. So that the Four Noble Truth has all the teachings of Hinayana, Mahayana and Vajrayana. All the teachings are combined into this, even though Buddha Shakymuni has given this teaching only in the Varanasi, and this was categorized as a Hinayana teaching, and many people think that this is Hinayana teaching. It is true that it has been taught as a Hinayana teaching, and also has been practiced mostly by the Hinayana practitioners, but the Mahayana practitioners and Vajrayana practitioners, they had to, and they have to, and they will be putting these Four Noble Truths as a principal practices Otherwise, there is no way to go detour and avoid it. There is no way to avoid it. Therefore, Vajrayana practitioner, for example, like us, we have to have a sense of renunciation. It's no good to say that the Vajrayana doesn't respect the sense development of renunciation. And also, it's no good to say that the Hinayana or the Sutrayana doesn't believe in a development of devotion, guru devotion, master devotion, and the devotion of different sorts of. It's also is a wrong thing to say that way. The Hinayana also, Hinayana and Sutrayana does have a emphasis, very strong emphasis on devotion also. Many holy sutras, such as many holy sutras talks very highly about the devotions also. So we cannot say that the sutra doesn't believe in devotion, and we cannot say the same thing, that we cannot say that the Vajrayana doesn't believe in renunciation. So the renunciation and the devotion are the main principal practices of the Buddhist teaching, no matter what jhana you are talking about. So I think I shouldn't go to the next step because we are running out of the time. That dus chedan taring that dembashidi tanjinge mingjik taji dangbotel shibre ta mingda chetin nejundub de jikta jeshe dub se kurwada tinge ani injinangla robs jik gabare ta mashi chedan jabina ta dembashidi ta kanda kasagor devasum da namran chungni sjejen den den ma songyong du damba yanji songdang banding songdu des nje ja du de ta den de mogobe cheni kanda nganzu gyunde ni sjen. It is very much karma. The karma, the Buddhist teaching is very much oriented by the karma, the karma. Almost the Buddhist teaching is very much rely on karma, the talks about very much on karma. Whereas in other religion they always talk about God, and in the Buddhist, instead of talking about God, we talk about karma, because the karma creates the world. To us, according to our understanding, or the Buddhist teaching, the whole world is created by karma, not by God. So this is what we have to think. That's the reason that the Four Noble Truths is very much based on that sort of theory and that sort of understanding. So this is very important to understand, The two first, one is the karma that relates to the samsara, and the second one or the next one is that is related very much to the nirvana. One is for the samsaric karma, and the other one is the nirvanic karma. Both are karma. Karma is all the way, from A to Z there is a karma. That there's no way, that there is no sort of places or no sort of moment that there is no karma until you get enlightened. After getting enlightened, then you do not have a karma. You are beyond the karma. Until then, you have karma. So this is something which you have to understand. So until then, you are bound to practice. You are bound to practice the Four Noble Truths. So this is a, of course, I don't think it's a news. It's just nothing news for you guys because you are, none of you are old, none of you are newcomer, I think. But anyway, it's a kind of a unique presentation of the Buddhist teaching. Not to talk about the God very much, instead we talk about the karma. And not only talk, but we practice. We practice karma, we familiarize yourself with the karma, samsaric karma, and this slowly, through development of understanding of samsaric karma, you will switch yourself into the nirvanic karma. And nirvanic karma is also not good enough. You have to get rid of that as well. You have to get rid of that as well. You can't say nirvanic karma is very good because it's being nirvana. Just being nirvana causes you say, oh, this is great. No, it is, comparatively or relatively it is great, but it is not great enough. You have to get rid of it. So therefore, you have to go through so many processes of purification. Not only just purifying your some of Drukpa, there's some of the negativities, You may have a lot of negativities, and these are very much need really to be purified. That's for sure. But that's not only the target that you have to fulfill. You have to go quite a long way. After that, you have to go through all sorts of things. What we say propensity, the propensity part of the obstacles, obscurations. Propensity, like for example, if you have a bottle, the perfume bottle, and after finishing the perfume, also when you smell it, you can smell the perfume, and the smell doesn't go off quite easy, even though the perfume is already gone, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but the smell is still there. So that is the propensity that we have, for example. Similarly, we have that also, the same thing in our gene or whatever you may call. Sometimes we, even if you are very kind of advanced practitioner, sometimes you get angry. Sometimes you get sleepy, you get sort of wild and all these things. These propensities or whatever, that this habitual entity is very strong. So this will also be needing to be purified. It's very much needed to be purified. So when you finish the entire process of purification, then the concept of purifying, is also need to be purified, So then after that, only after that you will be then enlightened. So enlightenment is not just simply outcome of a purification, but purification, the entire purification, the full purification. That is the thing. So that is the complete form of practices of the Four Noble Truths. Today in that demba shi singenti ta demba shi di demba se ate ma shi chida sanje chumden dege de song yobanda ta lamana be shi gyun li ne ko korwe demba da nyangalen de demba se shi gyun le song do.
So this may have served as a little introduction to what is known as the Four Noble Truths. And if I were to elaborate on this, we would speak of the two truths that pertain to samsara and the two truths that pertain to nirvana. There are many ways of looking at this, many reasonings to explain these. But what it is, when you summarize, is that all of these remain truth. However, if one were to cling on to these truths, well, then they would just remain as such. They would not bring about the attainment of Buddhahood. So in this way, having recognized them as they are, we also have to bring ourselves to go beyond them, beyond their influence.
Pena dembal dembran zimbe shembe nawati kandresena shidip to suchala sungu yabata nge da hako meda shiptu ya woj nge hako me ngai nyama de pej taynore shibza chin tan bagabji
in order to fully understand all of these, one often then there's a lot of talk of how we have to look into the books, how we have to go and study all of the various features that pertain to them in order to understand the integrity of them, so to speak. And whatever it is that we do not understand about these truths, whether we study them thoroughly or whether we want to understand them in an intuitive way, this is what is known as the obscuration of that which is to be known, the obscuration of the objects of knowledge, which is a form of ignorance. In this regard, we are not alone. All of us who concern ourselves with these various points continuously run into the one or other problem of the one or other sort. So therefore, we all need to strive in our own ways of bringing about an understanding and giving up the various kinds of grasping or clinging on to these ideas that we have made up ourselves. It's exactly these various ideas and concepts that we also have about very ordinary things, about how to put on our clothes, how to fix our belts, how to fix our shoes, our boots, etc. We go about this in a particular way, and we don't think twice about it, because we have given rise to some habitual tendencies of how to do these things. Now, when it comes to the practice of the teaching of the Buddha, we have to bring about experience by way of practicing. Simply taking things at face value, that in itself doesn't get us anyway. We have to reflect about these teachings, and then we have to put them into practice so as to bring about the certainty of their truths by way of personal experience.
tamma sambada rwa keje she samba chik tendre khanda khan chumba yine tege de changmalon zimbar res
and all of these various other ways of going about different types of business, of hanging on to various habits of doing things this or that way, they're nothing else but clinging. They're just the same kind of clinging as that clinging that we have to the self, to the ego, which we call ego clinging. And that in turn is based on nothing else but ignorance of. It is based on not knowing the nature of phenomena, appearances of things as they truly are. And exactly this ego clinging in turn is that which gives rise to all sorts of ideas and reactions in regards to what we experience. It's this ego clinging which gives us this idea that there are other people out there who might want to harm us in any which way, who might to cause us discomfort. If we would not have this clinging to ourself, which has forever been non-existent in the first place, then all of these experiences, all of these various inconveniences, etc., they would not arise in the first place.
Ranglul chebe ina ta zimba thamoni cheba chamalo dinjin re rwa Tenzin Giching
Now, when we talk
Tenzin
about
Mevachi,
clinging,
Yomari,
it
Cheza,
also goes
Solo,
without saying that, of course,
Anipe,
there are all
Deme
sorts
Juma,
of clinging.
the
There are
Tebe,
very coarse kinds of clinging which are very obvious for us to understand, very obvious for us to see and therefore to get rid of. But there are also very subtle ways of clinging which are so subtle that they have become so second nature to ourselves that we do not even notice them. And these are rather more difficult to eliminate. This again may manifest itself in various ways of how we go about our daily activities, the way we dress ourselves, the way we put on our shoes, the way we fix our belts, the way we eat our food, etc. and so forth.
Penaji Chatung Sambata, Che Sambati, Tandandi Sambe Kabul Kariorisana, Chatung Sambati, Zimbati Kandaji Yungorsan, Chala Charun Zimbi, Tinzin, Yugi Chatung or mission, Chala Dembran Zimba, Chala Charun Zimbi, Zimba Mena,
the simple activity of drinking tea gives rise in ourselves of all sorts of ideas. There's a certain way we drink our tea, there's a certain way we like our tea. As soon as we hear of or we think of drinking tea, a certain idea, a certain mental image arises in our minds. And that in turn gives rise to a whole train of thoughts and ideas that we allow to arise out of the initial notion of tea or drinking tea. This is simply because we cling onto these ideas, because we grasp onto these habitual, these ways of having habituated ourselves to go about business, going about drinking tea, for instance. Now, what the various skillful means and methods of the secret Mantrayana, the Vajrayana, are all about is to slowly chip away at all of these habitual tendencies, first the coarse ones, then the subtle ones. We transform our view, our ideas of whatever it is that we do, be it drinking tea or eating food or whatever, to such an extent that this form of clinging or grasping ourselves onto the very idea of doing this or that does not arise anymore. In this way we rid ourselves of this clinging and we purify ourselves. We pure ourselves of the various influences which are allowing ourselves to be ruled by these clingings bring about. So all of this clinging and grasping, all of these ideas and concepts of ourselves, these habitual tendencies of reacting in such way and not in other ways, etc. and so forth, they are that which makes this cycle of samsara, this cycle of suffering, continuously turning. They are that which keep this cycle of samsara going for ourselves. And to bring an end to this seemingly endless cycle, this is what the very talk of ceasing or of cessation is all about. There is a lot more talk also about the very things that have to be abandoned, the things which should be adopted in this stand, etc. and so forth. All of these and the teachings, the instructions on these various activities are that which bring about cessation. And when we talk about cessation here, we mean the cessation of the cycle of suffering, of samsara. Jala kanda kanga bu kanda kan mi kanda kanwa chawa kanda kangi tendal samtambi ne kanda kan tedang tel ped yeber zimba tedang ter zimbi ini sembinan zimba chambuti yoyeng meba yimbare da tim mebaje. So all of these ideas of grasping onto this and that, of clinging onto this and that, of allowing certain sorts of reactions, etc., to arise on the basis of such clinging. They're then eventually eradicated, they're then eventually purified.